So I had severe acne growing up in middle school and through high school, and it was bad enough where I had to go on Accutane. I don't know if any of you have had to go on Accutane, so it's basically like the final resort if you have really severe acne. You basically have to do blood tests once a month to monitor a whole bunch of levels, and they're always concerned about your liver function, all this stuff. But before I went on Accutane, I tried all sorts of things to figure out the solution to my acne problem. I'm a kid of the 90s, so I asked my parents if we could use our 56K modem. So waited for that thing to load up, the beep, 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 shh, that noise, right? Log in, and I did what any logical person would do. I went to Ask Jeeves. Now, if you don't know what Ask Jeeves is like ChatGPT of the 90s, basically. So you ask Jeeves whatever you want, and Jeeves will provide the answer. So Jeeves recommended, first, Stridex. Does everyone remember these commercials? Next, Oxy. Although, I look at this commercial and I'm like, why in the world would anyone take this? My goodness, your face is gonna get up in flames or something or so. And then there was the thing that I asked my parents for Christmas, if I could get Proactive. Because Proactive, I remember, was extremely expensive, and I knew I'd have to save some money, or translation, if you're growing up in an Indian parent household, we didn't get allowances or anything like that, so I basically just asked my parents. Although now I look at this and I'm like, man, it's 3 stages to figure this out. It's a lot of work, so I don't know about this. Now, here's the thing I'm gonna tell you. Obviously, I'm Indian, and after this presentation, all of you, even if you're not Indian, you will become Indian, because I'm gonna tell you a secret, all right? So this is Vico turmeric. Vico turmeric, if you're Indian or Pakistani or Sri Lankan, raise your hands. Everyone knows who this is. Okay, this is turmeric cream, all right? Turmeric-based cream. The best analogy I could tell you is, y'all remember My Big Fat Greek Wedding and how the dad was use Windex for everything? This is like Vico turmeric, right? So whatever you have, just use Vico turmeric and you're good. Now here's the best part of these commercials though. They're as cheesy as you can get. So you gotta read carefully. So it says 24 karat beauty. I don't know the rest of it because I don't speak Hindi, but I was I just put hashtag goals, because who wouldn't want that 24 karat beauty when you're using Vico turmeric? So I share this because for me, when you have severe acne, the thing that you struggle with is not just how you look, but often the stories that you tell yourself. I'm not attractive. No one would want to see me on camera. All of these things. These were in my teens and into my early 20s. And I started a podcast called Selling the Couch 9 years ago. And I remember there was a moment where I was like, should I do a YouTube podcast, right? And I thought about it for about 8 seconds. I was like, heck no, I am not doing that. And so I stuck to an audio-only podcast for the past 8 years. We did, at this point, we've done 375 episodes. We reached 1.81 million downloads, and I recently found out it is now in the top 0.5% of podcasts in the world. And which is, y'all will quickly learn about me. Listen, if I can do it, y'all can do it too, because there are a lot of things going against me. I'm super introverted. I'm pretty camera shy. And 2 years ago, I thought the interesting thing with podcasting is you think you're starting a podcast and doing interviews or solo episodes to build your business or brand or whatever it is. But the thing I didn't realize is it makes you brave in a way that I never thought possible. So I remember even in the early stages, I would be in my like 10 by 10 home office, which y'all will see plenty of behind the scenes pictures of here in a little bit. But I remember like being terrified to actually record something on audio. And over time, that fear went away. And about 2 years ago, I was like, maybe we should start this video thing. So before we jump into what we're going to talk about today, my topic is vodcasting, the next big thing. So vodcasting, video podcasting. I was talking to my wife this morning, so she's like, so it's basically a show, right? And so I think so. So what is vodcasting? It's basically an audio podcast with the video on. The video is then distributed to channels like YouTube. So when I speak and when I generally teach, I come from 3 generations of teachers. I was born in India. My grandparents left the big city they were living in to go to a remote village in India because they believed in the power of education. And my parents were both teachers. My dad was a teacher at law school. My mom was a teacher at nursing school. And so when I think about talks like this, I don't like to keep it really like high level. So we're gonna go into like the nitty gritty. 3 parts, what I saw for us to make this transition to video podcasting. I'm gonna share my setup, and then we're gonna talk about our content flywheels. So basically, how do we take a long form video podcast and basically create somewhere between 10 to 15 pieces of content for LinkedIn? So here's what I saw. People trust podcasters. This is a ACAST media study from 2023, and I remember reading it and thinking like, oh my gosh, this is what I feel. And in this study, half of podcast listeners trust podcasters the most of any tested medium. So basically, they studied a whole bunch of online medium, and they found that podcasters were the most trusted out of all media personalities. Now, how many of you listen to podcasts? Quick raise. Okay. How many of you like have a favorite podcaster or podcasters? Okay. And then how many of you have thought about buying something or actually purchased something based on what the podcaster recommended? Right, so look around and keep y'all's hands up. So this is really interesting, right? There's something with the power of voice that people trust. Now here's the other thing I just mentioned. The second most trusted was YouTubers, with 44% of YouTube consumers saying they trust these media personalities. So basically, what I thought was, if we already are capturing a decent segment with this audio podcast, why not try to capture the top 2? The final thing, there was an interesting thing. How many of y'all have noticed that YouTubers are now becoming podcasters? Like they have their own kind of podcast, right? So this was the other conclusion. They said YouTube is emerging as a leading platform for podcast consumption, and many of these sought-after YouTube personalities are also becoming podcasters. Now, I didn't just want to rely on one study. What I also looked at was some of our own data. So I helped therapists specifically launch their own podcasts and their own online courses. And we run an online course mastermind. We've had this incredible opportunity over the past 3 years to support just a little over 50 therapists launch their first online course. And about a year ago, I thought, I wonder if there's a way that we can let these new therapist course creators tell their story, but also share some of the lessons that they learned in their course creation journey. So we started doing live streams. So this is Katie Lear. Katie has a really interesting business. Katie does a Dungeons and Dragons leadership course for teens. So these are teens that normally wouldn't get opportunities for like leadership positions or gets picked on sports teams, but she teaches leadership through Dungeons and Dragons. So her most recent launch 2 months ago did $50,000 in revenue. So she's killing it. And you would think I had the same reaction. I'm like, this is so niched. Like, who's actually signing up for this? Her most, I think 105 kids signed up, and it's completely online. But I did this live stream with Katie, and what was interesting was and it was a wonderful conversation, but almost 80% of the people who ended up joining our mastermind said that they listened to this live stream with Katie, and that is actually what cemented their decision to invest in the mastermind, which was really interesting. I'm an avid hiker. I told my wife, I said, hey, the house we live now, it's 3 minutes away from a park. It lets me get in a daily hike. So 1 p.m., often I'm doing one of two things. I'm either catching up with friends on the phone call, or I am listening to a podcast while doing my hike. But what I noticed in my own behavior is that I started shifting from audio podcasts to actually listening on YouTube. And then if for example, they would share like, oh, here's a screenshot of this, I will pull my phone out and then take my own screenshot. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. My own consumption behavior is changing. We'll get more into the repurposing here in a little bit, but what I also thought is, generally what I've found is when you start with a long form piece of content, it's a lot easier to repurpose it. So in terms of video, we can turn them into shorts, we can turn them into blog posts, carousels, which are like PDFs on LinkedIn. You can make infographics out of them. You can put them as YouTube shorts, LinkedIn posts as well. Now, I got all of that information, and I'm going to show y'all my setup, and I'm going to put in some slides because there's some hot mess like slides in this, but I just feel like, I don't know for you, but when you think about, maybe raise your hand, when you think about video, does the tech scare you? Because that's something that, and if it does, like raise your hand. Like, that's why I will not touch this, because there's just too many things. I don't know what it's going to look like. So I'm going to show you my current setup, and then I will show you the hot mess stuff, okay? So this is our current setup. This is my home office. This is around $8,000 to $10,000 in gear. So I'll, again, go into like all of the pieces, but what you're seeing on the kind of front right is a teleprompter. So this allows me to have a second monitor. So anytime, for example, we're recording a video podcast, I can have my notes on there. So it looks like I'm looking at the person, but I'm really looking at the notes because the notes are getting reflected up on the thing. I've got a aperture light dome, which I will, that's on the top right. And this thing is massive. It's probably about this big. But this is what's known as a key light. And so key light is probably the most important light that you can have. And so the cool thing, this is made by a company called Aperture. It's the 120D. And the cool thing about this one is it has a remote, so you can control the intensity. So you can control it based on things like skin tone and stuff like that. The other stuff, the final thing I just wanted to mention is, and I'll speak a little bit more about this, you'll see that mic that's kind of hovering over. So people don't actually see this mic, but this is what's known as a shotgun mic. And so this mic allows my voice to be captured, but the mic doesn't show up on the screen. So now this is my view from my desk. And so I'm looking straight up, and there's this, there's the aperture right there on the top left. As you can tell, there's like a screen there, so it filters some of that light. So what you essentially want is you want the light to diffuse, so it looks like it's hitting your face, but it doesn't look unnatural. So that's why I don't really recommend like a ring light, because that light is way too concentrated. Now, the other piece of this is, this is something we added. So this is what's called a grid. And so trying to make the decision between whether to do a grid or not a grid really depends on a couple of things. So basically what a grid allows you to do is it helps you concentrate the light into one certain area. If you don't have a grid on, The light will hit you and shine you, but it'll also shine your background, which you may not want that look. It's kind of an aesthetic thing that you want to decide. So this is what our setup currently looks like with all of that like setup, right? So we've got the lights coming in on the side. This is my podcasting mic. A fun note on this. This mic is the Shure SM7B. So this is what Michael Jackson used to record Thriller with. So that's that mic. And I've got a digital SLR, which is what we also use. And so that's the reason that background is blurred like that. So it kind of creates just kind of a professional kind of vibe. Just real quick, when you're seeing this, like what are you thinking about? What's the vibe that you get? Feel free to raise your hand. And
it's easy to look at.
Yeah.
The lighting is really nice.
Yeah, it's like visual. Yep.
Feels
Very
very warm.
warm. Yeah. So this isn't meant to pinpoint like your Zoom calls and stuff, but really think about like what the aesthetic of it looks like, right? One of the most common things that I see is people have their laptop here and they're up here. So it's almost like they're talking, like somebody's like looking up at you. So think about things like power and dynamics and how that can sort of influence, right? I told you all about cringe photos. So here's cringe photo number 1. This is Mel's bearded stage. Mel went through a couple of different stages, but I wanted to share this because for a number of years, all I've literally had was a $100 setup. That mic was $50. I got that thing's called a mic flag. So I got it from a company called Impact PBS. They do a lot of stuff for like ESPN, a bunch of CNN, stuff like that. But it violates all of the other rules. I have literally nothing in my background except a gray background. So, and then this is Mel's COVID phase. 6 months of no haircuts. That is what happens. How many of y'all remember that stage? Hopefully we don't ever go back to that. But this is, I wanted to put this picture in there because this was one of the first times where I was experimenting with the lighting. So you can tell there's a lot of stuff that's off. Like my face is not really well lit up. The background, there's a lot of like blown out highlights, which it almost like it makes like that top left where the camera and that green plate is, it's almost like too distracting, right? So this is just a side note. When you're creating these backgrounds, one thing I found helpful is you want places where your eyes can rest, but you want still it to be centered on you, right? Okay, so some gear stuff here. So I'm looking, as I mentioned, at a teleprompter. And so again, the best way to describe this is like a second monitor. So there's a bunch of different ones. I use the Lilliput A11. And the cool thing is basically you can drag from one monitor to the other. So as I mentioned earlier, this allows me to, for example, put some notes for a video podcast that I'm doing on the screen, but still be talking into the camera, i.e. into someone's face. And so this is then what I see. So it looks something like that. So it gets reflected onto me. This is a newer product that I would look at if you're like wanting to check this out. This is the Elgato teleprompter. This thing is way more efficient than the one I use. So literally it has both of those, the monitor and the mirror together, and it's a newer product. Okay, so the other piece I mentioned is I've got this shotgun mic, and it's on a mic arm. So I use the Rode PSA-1 mic arm. For me, the real practical thing is I want to be able to walk into my home office, plug something in, and be able to record in about 5 minutes. I don't want to mess with like taking stuff down, all of that. Like I feel like the more you have to do that, the more technical issues that can come up. So in an ideal situation, what I would recommend is having a static setup where you can just plug in your lights and you're ready to record. Now, the shotgun mic is on this mic arm, and it's clamped to my desk. Again, I'm all about like functionality, so I'll show you what this video in this next one, what this looks like. So, I don't know if that'll play, maybe not. Okay, but the video is, or it essentially, the mic moves and it makes it very easy for me to just start recording. I mentioned this earlier, the Aperture 120D. So this is a great light. It is expensive. It's around like $1,000 to $1,300. Definitely like save for it, but it'll make a huge difference in your video production quality. And then again, this is the light dome. Again, larger the surface, the more diffuse that you can make everything. Okay, so it's nice to have a setup. Let me actually, any questions on any of that at all? Like anything that's not clear or anything I can expand on at all with gear recommendations, anything? Yeah. Which one? It's the shotgun mic. What brand is it? So I use the Sennheiser MKH416. So that mic is also expensive. I think it's like $1,000. But it's the mic that's used on a lot of Hollywood movie production sets. It's a very durable mic. The only thing with that mic is it's an XLR connection, so it's not a USB connection. So you need something like a Rodecaster. I don't know if y'all saw this news, but like last week, it's on pre-order right now, but Rode just released a video, I think it's called a Videocaster. Basically, it allows you to plug in the camera and your audio all into one device. So, I did not. So I use the Nikon D810, and the lens that I use is a 2470 f2.8. But the Sony cameras are phenomenal as well. I was just in the Nikon family, so I just stepped, but the Sony ones, like I know a lot of creators recommend. Any more questions on the gear stuff? Okay, perfect. So all of this gear is fantastic, but it should help us to create content. And so I wanted to share kind of our flywheel. Feel free to take a screenshot of this, like if it's helpful. Basically, my goal is, another side note on this, there's Nathan Barry at Kit or ConvertKit. He has a great article on creator flywheels that I highly recommend looking at. And so it's basically, how do you create one piece of content and then almost create a flywheel where in the initial stages, that content is really hard to create. It takes time. But because you've put in the work on the front end, you can then leverage it. The best image I have is when I was born in India, and when I was growing up there, they would have these like almost water pipes on the side for people to easily access, and they had this wheel, and it was almost like a pulley system, so you'd have to like push this really hard, and it was really hard to move it at the initial stages. But the more you did it, the easier it got for the water to come out. So that same concept. And so what we do is we start with a long form video. So I basically, when I'm recording, let's just say I'm recording a solo episode in this case, I've got both the audio on and the video on. I'm a Mac person, so I use Ecamm Live for our local recordings. But there's a number of options out there. So we record this long form video. We're simultaneously recording the audio podcast. And then I have editors for both. So I send the video to our YouTube editor. I send the audio to my podcast editor. But here's where the magic really starts to happen. So I'll show you guys, I hope the video works, but if it doesn't, we use a shorts creator called Opus Clip. It's an AI-generated shorts creator. How many of y'all are familiar with it? Okay. Could someone explain it to everyone like in 2 sentences? Yeah.
Yeah, it takes like a full video, but uses AI to break it down. It's a really good, like, marketable
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so exactly that. So somehow, like, you literally put in the URL of the video that's gone live into Opus Clip, and Opus Clip will generate a score from 0 to 100, and it'll do it based on 4 factors. I can't remember all of them off the hand, but like an example would be, is this a topic that's trending that people are interested in? Did the section of the clip have an interesting, did it pull you in, right? Did it have something like that? So based on that, it'll generate these scores from 0 to 100. And what I'm generally looking for is scores above 85. And usually with our stuff, we get anywhere from 7 to 10 pieces of content. So you can set some parameters. I'm hoping that the video works, but if not, I'll explain it. But you can set some parameters around Opus Clip too. So you can say, hey, I only want 30-second clips. I only want 60 to 90-second clips, whatever it is. We tend to go for 60 to 90-second clips, and it will automatically put the captions and all of that. And they have like 5 or 6 templates you can use. So literally, it's just a couple of clicks, and then the shorts are then created. Now it's AI, so I feel like it's not all the way there yet, right? So the cool thing is, if I always replay everything, and if something looks a little bit off, you can just quickly edit it, and it'll readjust it. So you can remove some words, or you can add words, all of that. Like it transcribes it on the background, on the back end as well. So we have these shorts, and those shorts then turn into something like 5 to 7 LinkedIn posts. So I will put the video on there, and we've been on LinkedIn for about 2 years, and I've had really good growth. I think we just hit about 500,000 views of our content, and what I've generally found is just putting the short on there, it's often not good enough. You need to add some sort of text. So like a summary of what the short is also about, I think can be extremely helpful. Also, the reality is not everyone may be able to listen, right? They may be on a train or whatever it is, right? We use another piece of software called Swell.ai. How many of you have heard of Swell at all? Okay, so this is another piece, especially if you're a podcaster or if you're thinking about starting a podcast. This is what you can basically do is take the not getting too technical, taking the file of your podcast, put it into Swell, and Swell will generate a transcript, an AI summary, timestamps, social media posts. Like it does all of it, all into one kind of thing. But what we primarily use is the transcript. And what then I do is I take the transcript and I will do a couple of things with that transcript. The first thing we do is we create a SEO optimized blog post around this podcast episode. So each blog post has the YouTube video, has audio as an audio player, and then has the transcript and then timestamps and a brief summary. So it has all of that. And then what I then do is, and we've just started to do this, I take the transcript that Swell has generated, and I will put this into ChatGPT, and I will say, hey ChatGPT, I'm going to include a transcript of our latest podcast episode. Would you be able to find 5 to 7 interesting moments in this transcript? And then would you be able to use, either I'll say like best copywriting practices, or I'll say like the ADA framework or the PASS copywriting framework, problem, agitate, solution framework, to generate 5 to 7 LinkedIn posts. So ChatGPT, I feel like, gets you like 75% there. So you got to include that last 25% just to like, spruce it up, but it gets you pretty good. So you've got then at this point 5 to 7 LinkedIn posts. We've got our clips, and that's generally then how we create this flywheel. And then we just go back to the same thing in the future episodes. Any questions on any of that before I hopefully show this video that works? Yay.
How long does the whole flywheel take you?
Yeah, so I would say the video podcasts tend to be about half an hour. So the shorts, at this point I have like an assistant that helps me. I think it takes, Opus Clip I think generally takes about 15 minutes. Swell I think takes 15 to 20 minutes. And then honestly putting the blog post together is the thing that takes the most time. I think my assistant said it takes her about an hour and a half for the whole process. That does not include the editors, but yeah, it's a great question. Any other questions on this sort of flywheel idea? Okay. I want to make this practical. So as you're thinking about this for your business, what's standing out about how you might be able to create your own flywheel, like what you might be able to do? And it doesn't need all of these pieces, but like how could you think about it? Hey, yeah.
One of the things I've heard several people talk about in the past day and a half is that no one really knows which channel is most successful for them.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so is that part of what's driving, the spread, like getting it across everything?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it is definitely that, like diversifying. Michael earlier spoke about email. So what we're doing is we're driving all of this to an email list because I'd rather have real estate that we own versus like building on these rented platforms. We used to have, we shut it down. We had a 10,000 member Facebook group for 9 years. And one of the lessons I learned from that was in the early days of the Facebook group when there was like all this incredible reach, anything we posted, the members would see. And then over time, Meta started really restricting reach. And so I think it taught me to not build your audience on rented real estate. So the question, to answer your question, so it's definitely diversification. It's also because I think about it as discovery platforms and relationship deepening platforms. So LinkedIn is our discovery platform. It's the thing that somebody could search for my account, could find my content, all of that. But what I'm trying to think about is, I'm a psychologist, and so I think a lot about like when somebody comes into the therapy room, how does trust and rapport get built? Like I'm not going to throw, like even if I see a pattern, I'm not going to throw an intervention out there in the first session, right? I'm gonna let that trust build. And so what I'm really focused on is these relationship deepening platforms. I have one discovery with LinkedIn, but the relationship deepening are YouTube and the audio podcast. And then that goes to the email list. A side note on this, 93% of anything people have ever bought from us have come through our email list. So it has not come through social media. So it's just like reminding me, we take basically the folks that feel the most connected with us to our email list. So it's a great question though. Yeah. Hey, Mike.
How do you think about other vertical video channels like TikTok?
Yeah. I think about it as a dad who's got a 6-year-old at home and with like very limited bandwidth. I feel like, if I'm just being completely honest, I tried to do LinkedIn, Facebook group, and Twitter, and that was extremely hard to do that because it's just like we have a very small team, and I found like I was doing a lot of drive-by marketing, and so I've found that I can do one discovery platform well, and then 2 relationship deepening platforms, and I take it all to an email list. Alex Hormozy talks about, like, he has a great quote that I think a lot about, which is like simple scales, fancy fails. And I feel like for many of us, like we're all smart people, and I think the challenge of being smart and highly driven is that we get in our own way and try to complicate things. So I constantly have to remind myself of that. So, yeah. Looks like we have about 3 more minutes, but hopefully this video plays.
Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. I figured I would just create a quick video to walk you through Opus Clip and how we actually take YouTube videos and turn them into clips using AI. So basically, you can take any video on YouTube actually, but it probably makes the most sense to do one off of your YouTube channel. So what you simply do is you just go in and go into YouTube. So I'll do that right now. And let's say that I want to pull like my most recent video, right? So just go here, click here, share, get the URL, copy it to your clipboard, and then go right here to opus.pro, and literally right here you just click, just put in the URL and then hit get clip with one link. You can also set some parameters here. So I like to do the clip length around 30 to 60 seconds, especially for like LinkedIn. And then I like to write a little bit in addition to also having the video available there. And then you can say like I want all of the video to process or certain parts to process. I usually just do all of it. And then you can pick between a couple of different presets or templates. And I usually like, there's a bunch of them here. And so I like this one right here, the deep diver. And then just get clips, one click. And it will automatically start creating the clips, and so it'll say in queue. And then what happens then is you will get taken to a page like this, and this has some of our previous clips. And so let's just look at an example right here. So these are all different clips, and what Opus Clip does is it does a score based on 100, so higher the better, and it does it based on, uses AI to say like how interesting is the hook that this clip captured, how interesting is the flow, is there value added, and then is this a topic that is trending? And so based on those, it will create these clips for you. If something's, I always like to just look at it one final time just to make sure everything's smooth. So I always play it through here. And then, so you literally just click the play link and it gets so many really nice and it'll start playing it. And if you ever need to edit it, i.e. like, let's say something is, you want to include a little bit or something like that, you simply hit edit clip and then you can do that. You can also add in B-roll. So like, overlays of a video instead of just a talking head as well. Generally, what I'm trying to look for is scores above like 85. And so usually I end up on typical podcast episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them here. So it's a great way to repurpose content, and I hope that you find this helpful.
All right. So hope you enjoyed this presentation. Love to connect with you. There's a QR code. You can follow me on YouTube, and appreciate y'all tuning in.